This conference will now be recorded.
So I'm opening my PowerPoint presentation, and you can see here that hope you're able to see this.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this is a Microsoft Azure cloud computing solution. We all know what is the definition of it. And at the same time, it's a good idea to have a brief understanding of what the cloud computing is all about. You can see both a generic definition as well as a specific definition from Microsoft, which says that it's basically a delivery of computing services, and these services can be anything ranging from servers, storages, databases, networking, and so on and so forth, right? And these services are basically shared on a pay-as-you-go methodology to the end customers, right? And later on, of course, I'll be showing a demonstration of what are exactly these computing services are all about. Now I'm going to move to my next screen. Whenever we are talking about any cloud, the first thing that comes to our mind is a data center. And it's a very good idea if you can imagine a data center as a kind of a collection of vast array of physical servers, as well as a vast array of network connectivity devices and many other kind of, when I say network connectivity devices, what I mean by this is they can be switches, routers, modems, and many other type of devices can be used for interconnecting this vast array of servers, right? And on these servers, you can also imagine all kinds of business applications concerning various companies, organizations, individuals. They are all hosted, and they are running on these various data centers. And let me tell you, a data center, if you look at the diagram of a data center, just let me show that part to you. So you can see some of the data centers which have been evolved since the very generation 1, generation 2, generation 3 data centers, if you can see. And they have undergone a tremendous amount of evolution. And today we look at data centers that have very thin blade servers that are developed by companies like Dell, HP, and some other companies also are responsible for development of such type of rack servers that you can see over here. So these are essentially data centers on which various business critical applications are hosted and run on behalf of the companies, and these are all maintained and managed by Microsoft. If you're looking at the data centers of Microsoft itself, then these are all maintained and managed by Microsoft itself. So you don't have to worry about any kind of physical cost incurrence, the hardware cost incurrence. Nothing is of your concern. You can only focus on your own business, how that can run effectively on cloud platform with great amount of speed, flexibility, security, and many of these aspects which are the hallmarks of cloud computing. Okay, so you can imagine the data centers as kind of backbones on which your actual business is hosted and running, and they are all scattered all over the world geographically, and you should be aware of that fact. And slowly we will get into that kind of a groove if we get to go further into these lessons. Okay, hope I am audible and my screen is visible very clearly. Very quick confirmation, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Now let's move on to the next part. Okay. One of the things, whenever we are talking about uh, data centers, is that, or businesses which want to access the cloud solutions, there is something which is called as a shared responsibility. So Azure is essentially a kind of a shared responsibility, which means if you look at this on-premises part of it, if you look at this particular bar that you see here, right from networking and up to the data, the whole thing is owned and managed by you. By you means the company itself is responsible for the management of all the networking, the servers, the virtualization, the operating system, the middleware. Everything is taken care by your own organization. The cost incurrence, the maintenance of it, the installation and upgradation parts of it, everything will be your responsibility. That's what basically happens or used to happen until quite recently, where now things are changing somewhat, where there is another kind of a shared responsibility which is coming into the picture here, and that you can see it as infrastructure as a service, or IaaS. In this case, you can see part of the cloud solution is owned by you and partly by the service providers like Microsoft in this case. So in infrastructure as a service, if you observe very carefully, the networking, the storage, the servers, and the virtualizations, they are all the responsibilities of the service provider like Microsoft in this instance. Whereas you only need to focus on the operating system, the middleware, the building up of the virtual machines, and the runtime environment, the data, and all these things are basically the responsibilities of your own company. So now in this case, you can see that you're only going to pay for Microsoft only for the services which are in the blue color, and you need not focus on these aspects which are in deep blue color because they are taken care by Microsoft itself. Then there is another type of a solution with which you may be interested, and that is platform as a service. In the platform as a service, you can see up to almost runtime, the whole stack is responsible or taken responsibility by the service provider himself, such as Microsoft in this case, and you need to focus only on development of your business applications. That means your focus should be only on how to develop effective applications, how to test these applications, and how to make these applications available to the end users. All these things plus the data, those are the responsibilities of your own company, of your own organization. So this type of an offering from Microsoft Azure is what we call it as a platform as a service. Okay, where you focus or concentrate only on business end and not bother exactly about where these business applications are going to run, in which data center they are going to run. That may not be much of your concern actually. And if you see the third offering from Microsoft, which is software as a service, this is nothing but the entire stack is owned and by Microsoft itself, Azure itself, and you only have to use the pre-built applications which are provided by Microsoft. For example, Office 365 or Dynamic CRM are two of the classic examples of what we call it as software as a service. Okay, any questions so far?
One question from my end.
No questions over here. Okay, let's
Hello.
move on to the next. Hello, yes.
Yeah, hi. Could you please go back to the previous? Yeah. So the client will be selecting any one of the services like IaaS or PaaS or SaaS.
So look at, sir, this is basically dependent upon your business scenario. Okay.
Okay. So let's say I am a client.
Say suppose you are a client.
Okay.
Okay, and you are, as a company, you only want to focus on the business end of your solution, right?
Okay.
Where
Okay.
there are developers in your company who who can use different type of software development kits, like for example class like Java or Node.js or Python or ASP.NET. Using any of these and more software development kits, your developers will be actively engaged in the development of very custom based applications for your company, right? And you need to focus only on how these applications can be effectively developed, and you need a platform to host and develop these applications. You're only looking for that, let's say, for instance.
Okay.
Okay, In such kind of a scenario, you can take PaaS as an offering, right? In which
Mm-hmm.
you do not have to really worry about, in which virtual machines, on which type of operating systems my applications would be running. That would not be
Mm-hmm.
your concern. So now you
Mm-hmm.
have offloaded much of your concerns to the vendor himself, and you're only focusing on your business end.
Okay.
In some cases, it becomes necessary that you are actively engaged in utilizing the services from cloud, such as development of virtual machines also. You follow? That
Yeah,
means you need to focus on which virtual machines my applications would run, and you yourself want to take the responsibility of building this kind of infrastructure on cloud, where you have your own virtual machines running, you have your own networks in which these virtual machines would be part of. You want to create and run your own database servers, web servers, and for them you need a lot of infrastructure that is required, in which case you can basically focus on as a solution
yeah. Mm-hmm.
the IaaS offering.
Okay, okay,
Okay,
okay.
so hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah, sure. Now, you see, one of the classic questions that people pose is that, okay, if I have to go for a cloud solution, what kind of a benefit I'm going to get? What are the advantages? My on the top of my mind, the greatest advantage that I see when we go for cloud computing solution is that cost effectiveness. Okay, because we really don't have to worry about the expensive hardware on which we have to do a lot of investment and also maintain that, and we are offloading really all this cost onto the cloud vendor himself. So things become very cost effective, and there is a lot of return on investment, ROI, that you can see. That may be one of your major concerns, because of which you may go for a cloud solution. Okay, the other thing is that, just ask yourself, suppose we have to build our own data center for a company. For example, a data center being a vast array of infrastructure that has lot of servers, blade servers, for example, rack mounted servers, with their own operating systems, with their own cooling machines, with their own backup power supplies, running 24 by 7, 365 days a year. If I have to have my own, means my company own data center, let me tell you, it may take anywhere between months in order to build this kind of a data center and make it fully operational for the company. But with cloud services, it is possible to build a data center on cloud, you know, with very, very less amount of time. You will be able to build your infrastructure on cloud and make it fully functional, and then start your business on cloud itself. So speed, agility are two of the other greatest advantages that you get whenever you go for cloud solutions. And not to mention the fact that you don't even have to worry about the security aspects of whether you don't have to be concerned with whether my data is going to be very secure, whether my applications are going to run in any secure environment or not. These things also need not be your concern, because Microsoft provisions lot of security principles that you can, as a cloud administrator, you can implement as a layered architecture. Let me repeat it. The security on cloud is implemented as a layered architecture, as a tiered architecture, in which layer within layer of security can be built using a number of security policies that Microsoft provisions to you. And once these security principles or policies are in place, then you need not be concerned about the security aspects of it. Number two, you also need not concerned about the whether the applications or whether the data that I'm going to have on cloud, whether that data or applications will continue to be available to me always. Yes, there is something which is called as resilience, which is one of the hallmarks of cloud solutions from Microsoft, where your data is stored in multiple locations, so that even if one data gets lost for some reason or gets corrupted, data, there is always a backup that is going to be available to you, and there is always a great amount of high availability, data redundancy, and disaster recovery plans in place. All these proactive steps can be implemented by you as a cloud developer, and these type of services are provided by Microsoft, such that you can utilize these services in order to ensure that you have a very solid security, not only security in place, but also a lot of redundancy and disaster recovery plans and many other high availability plans in place for you. Okay, so there are n number of advantages that I can think of, benefits I can think of, and one thing that comes to my mind is the service level agreements which Microsoft provides to the end user. These are called as SLAs. SLAs are nothing but the commitments which are which Microsoft Azure makes to the customers, stating that the services which are going to be accessed by you from cloud, those services would be up and running most of the time, 99.99% or 99.999% SLA agreements can be provided or provisioned by Microsoft. So you really do not have to worry about any kind of business interruption that can happen. Okay, so we have talked about some of the benefits over here. So let me move on to the next part of your if you look at the data centers over here, there are n number of data centers that you can see, where geographically scattered across the globe. So you really can take your business to nearest to the customers, where your customers are there, where your channel partners are there, with whom you do business in and out. All these can be, you can see here, what is the kind of flexibility and geographical distribution that Microsoft has across the globe. Okay. Now, another thing that people have asked in the previous case was that if we have to go for any kind of a certification plan, then what kind of a learning path we have to follow. Okay, so this is basically the Azure learning path. As you can see, fundamentally you can focus on Azure Fundamentals, and this is called as AZ900. This is the code given to a specific skill set that will be tested, and that are called as Azure Fundamentals. So this itself has certain amount of curriculum inside it. For example, Azure Fundamentals may have subscription managements and the fundamentals of cloud computings, principles of cloud computings, many other fundamental aspects will be tested by Microsoft. And once you clear this particular part, you will be awarded a kind of a certification where you are having this kind of a skill set on Azure Fundamentals. Okay. And you see, this Azure Fundamentals, interestingly, is common for many of the certifications that you see over here, whether you are going for a development solution or an architect technology or for Azure Architect Design, you definitely have to know about Azure Fundamentals as a module. Okay. But that means you should know Azure Fundamentals before you can take up any of these examinations. And there is also, of course, what we are very much concerned with is that AZ103, which is a Microsoft Azure administration, cloud administration exam path, where you will be tested on both Azure Fundamentals as well as some of the advanced aspects of administration like security, implementing data governance, and many other aspects you will be tested on before you can be awarded this particular certification once you pass this examination. Okay. So this is then roughly the kind of learning path that you can look forward to whenever you are looking at this examination path. Okay. So since some of you have asked for it, hope this has clarified some doubts to you.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now let's move on to the next part of it. I think this is going to be the demo itself. So I'm going to minimize this now. Now I will walk you through a short demonstration on Azure Cloud. So I'm going to go to my new browser. Hope you're able to see my new browser, sirs.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, in order to deploy, manage, maintain the cloud resources on your behalf of your company, there are three different type of tools available to you. This is important for cloud administrators to understand. I repeat, whenever you want to utilize, deploy, or maintain any of the services, manage any of the cloud services, there are essentially three types of platforms available for you. One of the platform is called as a portal platform. So when I say portal, it is essentially a kind of a graphical user interface through which, as a cloud administrator, you can log into the portal, similar to what I'm going to do now by typing portal.azure.com. All you have to do is enter this particular part on your web browser. And once you do that, you will be prompted to enter your username and password. That means your entire subscription that you are going to use. And basically, let me tell you, the other day I have already spoken something about a subscription, stating that it is a kind of a container that is tied up with a user account. Okay. So here I'm entering my own user account. And once I do that and click on next, I will be prompted to enter the password. And let me tell you, as a security principle, every user has to go through this kind of an authentication so that only authenticated users would be able to make utilization of cloud resources. And as a cloud administrator, you get to implement lot of other security aspects, just apart, not only just authentication, what I'm talking about, but also you can implement something which is called as multi-factor authentication, where when a user logs in to access some cloud resources, not only the user has to enter the username and password, but also an OTP will be sent to the mobile device of the user, and that OTP code also has to be entered by the user, and coupled with the authentication credentials and the OTP, this total three factors will be taken into consideration to generate a access token for the end user. So this type of advanced authentications, which are called as multi-factor authentications, also can be implemented. We will talk about it elaborately in our future curriculum if everything goes well. And you can also see that the moment I log in, you can see I have already been placed in my default directory, right? And this is my Active Directory user account, or this is basically my Outlook user account that I am using, not Active Directory, but my Outlook user account that I'm currently using it. Okay. At any point of time, I can just click on this and then sign out if I don't wish to use it. So having said that, you can see that on your screen a lot of Azure services which are available to you, and on your left side of your screen you can also see some favorites where a lot of other services you can observe a list of services. But one thing I would like to bring your focus right now is this one. You can see a key symbol over here with a free trial written here, and which says it's a subscription. Okay, that means you have a this is my currently free trial subscription that I'm utilizing. Okay, and whenever I'm going to click on this free trial subscription, to see, I will be taken to another blade or another screen where, as a cloud administrator, I can manage the subscription for my company. For example, let's say this subscription is for a company for which I am a cloud administrator. So this gives me a platform to view what is the cost that has been incurred so far. You can see a donut chart over here, which tells me for each of the services that I have utilized from cloud, what kind of a cost that has been incurred. I can see all this cost, and I can also manage this cost very, very effectively. I can also upgrade my subscription from one level to a higher level if I wish. So essentially what you're looking at is, as a cloud administrator, you have a platform for managing and maintaining your subscriptions in a very, very efficient and effective way. Okay, this is one aspect I wanted to talk about. Let's close this one. And now I would like to take you to your attention to one aspect of it, which says all services. And since for a long time we have been talking about cloud services and how they have made available, let me click on this one. And the moment I click, there is going to be another blade which opens up for me, where on the left hand side I can see the high level category of services, and on the right hand side I can see some of their subcategories. For instance, if I want to click on what are the compute services which are available to me, I just click on the compute high level category, and I can see that I have 28 subcategories of services within the compute services here, which means, suppose for example, there is a requirement for me as a cloud administrator to spin a virtual machine and deploy it on cloud. I just go to the compute over here and then click on virtual machines. You can see how easy it is. And once I have clicked on the virtual machine, it is only a matter of going to either the add a new virtual machine option over here, or I can come down and click on create a new virtual machine. Okay. So once I begin to create a new virtual machine now, as soon as I want to start this activity, now I'm going to be taken to a separate blade where I have to enter the relevant details of virtual machine that I want to create, starting with under which subscription I want to create this virtual machine, and under which resource group do I want to do this. And just for your kind information, a resource group is nothing but a kind of a container, a kind of a folder you can imagine, under which all related cloud services or cloud resources will be bundled and managed effectively. In a very rough sense, this is very similar to your folders on Windows, where all similar files you will put under one single folder in order to effectively manage them. So a resource group is very similar, and in many cases it becomes mandatory for you to create a resource group first and then any other cloud resource under the resource group later. For example, I want to create a virtual machine under this particular resource group on this particular subscription. If I do not have any resource group as of now, then I can just go and create a new one here. All I need to do is just enter the name of a resource group as per my company policies, whichever it may be. In this case, I just chosen a short name RSRG, and then I'm done. Now you can see that a new resource group has already been created now, a container in which my virtual machine will be now part of it. And now all I have to do is just give a company policy virtual name, a virtual machine name, and I'm just going to call it as VM1. But mind you, in a real-time scenario, any name that you give to a virtual machine should be in adherence to the naming conventions followed by your company. And then it is going to ask me in which region do I want to host this virtual machine. As I said in the previous diagram, geographically there are distributed data centers, and you have to choose a specific data center in which you want to host it. So this will be basically where my customers are or where my business is. That would be one of the ideas that you have to keep in mind before you choose any particular region. For instance, I'm selecting South India as an example, and you can see that I'm in the South India region currently where I'm going to build my VM. So somewhere in the data center in South India, possibly in Bangalore or in Hyderabad or in some other South Indian region, there will be some kind of a data center. There will be some server on which this virtual machine will be spun now. And as I go down, I have additional options that I can choose from. And as of now, I'm not going to refer to this redundancy factor, but of course I'll be discussing with you in detail in the later sessions. And I have to choose an image of those. What kind of an image or what kind of an operating system image that should be part of my VM now? So I have a flexibility to choose a number of images from a drop-down list. For example, I can choose a Red Hat Linux as my image, operating system image, as per my company requirements, or it can be something like a Windows Server 2016 data center server. For example, if I choose that, then I will be prompted to, select a specific size for my VM. So my virtual machine as of now has one virtual CPU, 3.5 gig memory, and some kind of a hard disk space that I can choose from in my next screen. Of course, you don't have to necessarily stick to this particular SKU, which is called as a stock keeping unit, but you can even change this size if you want to have much more customization that you want to go. There are a number of sizes of virtual machines that you can choose from, and everything has a cost incurrence over here. So please keep the cost factor in mind and see which one is most suitable with minimum cost and with great effectiveness. And once you have made a choice of that, you can just click on select, and then you are brought back to this particular screen where you need to enter the user administration, like username. In this case, I'm entering the name something like L admin. This is administrator username, of course. And there is a strict adherence to the password policies, by the way. So I have to stick to this guidelines. Then only I will be able to, Azure, permits me to use that password. Okay, it must have some characteristics in it. So it says the password confirmation does not match. So I'm okay. Looks like my password looks good. And then when I further scroll down, there are other options with which I currently can concern myself. For example, if I want to connect to my virtual machine using a remote desktop connectivity, as you know, using a remote desktop, you can connect to any machine. So I want to connect. For that, you need to choose either a HTTP, or you can choose a remote desktop protocol, whichever way you want to connect. And once you have done with this, you can go back to the next section, which is disks. And you can choose what type of a hard disk do you want. So basically you are creating an operating system disk over here, and you can see that I want to select a standard hard disk or a premium SSD. That means this is essentially a kind of a a very high performance hard disks. You can see both standard SSD and premium SSD. So therefore you will have more cost incurrence on it. And this can be your normal HDD with the magnetic disks which are used here, whereas these are basically like a electronic circuitry will be used over here. Okay. So once you made a choice of it, then you are also free to go for your networking part of it. That means Microsoft Azure prompts you to associate this particular virtual machine with a virtual network on the cloud now. So you can also spin a virtual network of which this VM will be a part. You can specify a subnet, a public IP if you wish. And once you have taken care of all these aspects, currently I'm just flowing through these things at a higher speed because as a part of demo, we do not have that much amount of time to get into the details of it. But trust me, in a real-time environment, each of these aspects will be minutely scrutinized by the administrator and then take a decision how to proceed further. And then you can go back to your management. and see what are the other management options that you have available. For example, you can choose to switch off these boot diagnostics of your virtual machine. That means you don't want, as soon as your virtual machine starts up, you don't want any diagnostics to happen, because it may, just be a waste of time. If you feel so, you can just switch them off. And once you have done all these aspects, you are free to now start creating a virtual machine right now. And it's running a final validation. As you can see, this validation has passed. So that means whatever we have done in the virtual machine is good to go back. It's good to go. And then we just create it. So you see, with the explanation, the entire virtual machine creation process would have taken me around 10 to 15 minutes. But without this explanation, trust me, it will not even take a couple of minutes for me to finish. And you can see that my deployment is underway. So there is a notification which is currently going on. You can see with a scrolling bar, and it says your virtual machine is now ready to be created in some geographical location, which is South India, on some data center, in some data center, with some operating system image that we have selected, with some hardware configuration which we have selected. With all these things, our virtual machine is going to be built now. Okay. Now you can see, as a part of the virtual machine, there are many other components which are getting created in the background. So this process may take a couple of minutes, because remember, your virtual machine is getting connected or getting built in some geographical location. And the further the geographical location you have from the more bandwidth or the more high-speed network is required if you want to have a very, very fast responses. Okay. Meanwhile, any other questions are there? Any questions you have while this is spinning up?
Nothing from my end.
Okay. Is Mr. Prakash
So
there?
what is here the containers actually?
Could you be a little louder, sir? I'm not able to hear you.
What is here the containers? I have seen that container. What actually it do, and in what kind of scenarios we can use that containers?
You see, basically, containers are kind of replacements to, the traditional way of creating virtual machines. Okay. Now, in order to deploy virtual machines in a more compact manner, in a more systematic manner, in a more efficient manner, there is a concept which is called as containerized operations, which have come into existence, and those are basically called as containers. In our future lessons, we will be talking more about it, but as of now, you can imagine a containerized environment is that in which, in a very short time, in a very efficient way, you can create and manage your virtual environment in a kind of a in a manner that is very, very efficient. Okay.
Okay.
So now you can see that your deployment is currently complete, and if you go back to your virtual machines on your left side, you will be able to see that the virtual machine which we have created, VM1, is now ready to go under this particular resource group in this particular location, and having a specific kind of an operating system image. Now it's only a matter of selecting this virtual machine, right? And then it is possible to perform all kind of management operations on it. For example, you can stop the virtual machine whenever you don't require it. This is one of the flexibility that you get, because every time a virtual machine on the cloud is running up and running, there is always a cost incurred with that. Okay. But wherever the virtual machine is not required to run, you may just stop it, and then you can restart it. You can delete a virtual machine whenever you wish. You can create a kind of a snapshot of that virtual machine by clicking on the capture image of that virtual machine. And of course, not to mention, you can create you can easily connect with that virtual machine by establishing a remote desktop connectivity. So the moment I click on connect, you can either use a secure shell, and you can use an RDP, where automatically a public IP address has been generated for your virtual machine, and using this particular default port number, it is possible for you to remotely connect to that virtual machine which you have just spun up. Okay, any questions you have, sir, until now? Any other queries that you have?
No.
Okay, so this is basically what I had in mind as far as the brief demo is concerned. And if you have observed, the entire demonstration was given on a Azure portal, which you can see that is a kind of a graphical user interface where you just manage, spin, manage, and deploy various kind of resources just by making a selections and then entering the relevant informations. Okay. There is another methodology. If you are a seasoned administrator with a flair for typing commands and automating many of your often performed tasks, you also have something which is called as a cloud shell. This is a command-based platform for administrators through which the administrators can run many of their commands, not only to create and deploy cloud resources, but also do a lot of management tasks. And specifically, this type of platform is suitable for those administrators who have to repeatedly perform a task. For example, to give an instance, let's say for a testing environment, you will have to spin up somewhere around 15 virtual machines, okay, for a testing environment before you actually take them into production environment. On a portal platform, you can only create one virtual machine at a time. But on a command-based platform like PowerShell, for example, you will be able to write some automatic scripts that will enable you to spin these 15 virtual machines in one single manner, in a cascaded manner, without having to actually go through an elaborate mechanical process. Okay, but of course the prerequisite to work with Cloud Shell is you need to understand all the commands that go with it. Okay, and interestingly, this particular PowerShell that you see on your screen is an extension of Windows PowerShell that you get with your Windows operating system whenever you install, and it is also a cross-platform as well. When I say cross-platform, what I mean by that is, if I click on this PowerShell option that you see where my mouse is currently hovering, you will be able to see something which is called as Bash. This is born again shell, which is a Linux-based command prompt. So you have a flexibility to switch anytime between the Windows PowerShell that you can see over here to Bash platform. This is a Linux environment, and the moment I click on this one, it is asking a confirmation whether you really want to switch from to Bash. I say yes, I want to do that, and now you can see very quickly Azure is going to prepare the platform where I can see a dollar prompt over here where I can just enter the Linux or Unix based commands, and I can create and manage directories, files, run scripts over here, type many other administrative related commands through which I can make my whole administration environment experience very effective and efficient. Okay, so this is one aspect I thought I will share with you as part of the demonstration. So one way of managing the cloud resources is through portal. The other way is through using Cloud Shell, which I can see here. And there is also a third one, which is called as a command line interface, or CLI. For that, you have to have a separate installation package available on Google, and you can search for this command line interface Azure package. And once you install this CLI package, you will be able to run similar type of command-based commands, but that will be on a CLI environment, which is also a command line interface only, a cross-platform environment that you see over here. Okay. So any other queries, questions that you have about this part? Now that you also are aware of what are the different type of management tools which are available to you: Portal, PowerShell, and CLI.
A small question from my end. So, was
Yeah, please.
PowerShell is an inbuilt tool within Azure, or we need to install it manually?
If you have observed here, the PowerShell is essentially a kind of a built-in tool. That means as soon as you start your portal, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can see that the PowerShell or Cloud Shell, if you can see, specifically I'm talking
Yes.
about Cloud Shell over here.
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay,
got it.
so this Cloud Shell is automatically available to me, which is an
Mm-hmm.
extension of Windows PowerShell. That's what I was trying to tell you. Okay,
Okay, got it now.
and you can also start this Cloud Shell independent of the portal. For example, you don't want to start the portal environment, but you directly would like to start the Cloud Shell. It's also possible. You can just go to the new browser, and here you can type shell.azure.com, and when you click on this one, you will be able to see that the same kind of an environment is available now, but that is independent of the portal now. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so now you can also, the same cross platform is available to you. You can switch to the PowerShell, and once you give a confirmation, W takes you to this particular yeah. And you can also build a virtual machine directly with the command prompt itself. For example, if I want to create a new resource group, if you recollect, on the portal, let me close this for you. On the portal, whenever we were trying to spin up a virtual machine, we had got the opportunity to create a new resource group, didn't we? In the
Yes.
same way, suppose you want to do the same activity of creating a resource group through command prompt, then you can just, all PowerShell commands begin with AZ. AZ means, that's just you can consider it as a short form for Azure, and you can say I want group, AZ group. The keyword is create, and you can specify a location where it needs to be created. For example, I can say I want to create in East US with a name called sample resource group. That's it. Now you can see that the same thing which I did in my portal, the resource group creation, can be done through a command prompt also. So when I click on enter here, you can see that invalid resource group location East US may not be a proper resource location here. Not a problem. We will just change this to some other location. For example, we can call it as Central US. Okay. And then we can say yes. So you can see that Azure has very quickly created a new resource group for me, right, in the Central US location, and the resource group name is sample RG. Now, what is my motive behind this creating this resource group? My motive behind this creating of resource group is, under this resource group, I want to organize all my other cloud resources such as virtual machines, my database servers, my web servers, my any other resources that I am using, but all of them have some kind of a commonality between them. I want to put them under one single container and manage them efficiently. That is the rationale behind creating the resource groups. Okay. And if I want to see a list of what are the resource group currently available for me, I can just say AZ group list. Mind you, again the command is beginning with AZ, but this time I want to list how many resource groups currently I am having in my portal, and I'll say I want this output to be displayed as a table format. And when I do that, now you can see I have actually 1, 2, 3, 4. If you remember, RSRG is the one which we created during the creation of the virtual machine in South India, and sample RG is something which we created just now in Central US. And these two resource groups were already existing prior to our discussions. So this is one simple example that I have shown. Now you can create a whole virtual machine, websites, database servers, many other things you can do right from the command prompt itself. Okay. And if I go to my portal right now and click on resource groups, now you can see a listing of all the resource groups which we have created and listed over here are all visible to me through portal also. Okay. So there is an automatic synchronization which always happens between the command prompts that you type and the portal environment. Of course, both are very much tightly coupled with each other. So this happens very, very automatically. Okay. So are there any other questions that I can take up before I wind up this session?
Nothing from my end.
Okay. So I would like to thank all the participants who have taken the trouble to join today's session. And hopefully the demo has met your expectations. Hello.
Hi Ravi. Is there anything like also Kubernetes and all will be taught here in this class?
I'm sorry, sir. Your voice is feeble. Could you kindly speak
Okay.
louder?
Also, the Kubernetes and all will be taught here, the same
No, sir.
Azure class,
See,
or it's again a different.
yeah, let me tell you. See, Microsoft Azure Cloud is a huge and vast platform that
Yes.
caters to different type of requirements, different type of business requirements. Okay. There is a scope for data scientists, there is a scope for solution architects, there is a scope for developers, there is a scope for cloud administrators, and so on and so forth. Our curriculum essentially is going to be part of cloud administration only, where we'll be touch basing with those aspects of Microsoft Azure which will enable us to do a very effective, efficient administration of cloud for our company. Okay, that will include certain uh, parameters, that will include certain type of environment with which we will be associating with, and we may not be able to touch base with other environments with which cloud administration does not concern itself. Okay. But having
Okay.
said that, yes, there is a there is a Kubernetes which you have seen, but we will not be touch basing with those Kubernetes because that will not be part of our concern as our cloud administration part of it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So to reiterate the point, I would like to say that this entire curriculum that we offer is for cloud administration part that includes managing of cloud resources, infra as a service, essentially on infra as a service, which means we are going to create and manage a lot of resources on the hardware platform which is provided by Microsoft, and that includes virtual machines we are going to create, manage them, and database servers, web applications, app services, and Active Directory users and group accounts, how to create and manage Active Directory users and group accounts. Those are some of the aspects with which we will be concerning ourselves, and there is more in it, of course, and we can't leave behind security aspects, data governance, which also is part of our cloud administration aspect. How are you going to create secure environment for your Azure resources? What kind of data governance should be in place so that the entire organization is adhering to these specific guidelines which you are going to spin up as a cloud administrator? Okay, so those are some of the aspects we'll be looking into.
Thank you, Ravi.
Okay, it looks like there are no other questions. If that's the case, then I would like to bring this to a closure right now. I hope that is fine. Unless, of course, you have anything else to ask me. I keep the floor open.
So nothing from the course side, and how about the fee structure and all? Will you be explaining it here or
I will ask
on?
yeah, sure. Regarding the duration and the fee structures, I would request my the front office the counselors to touch base with you, Mr.
Mhm.
Charan, okay.
Mhm.
And you can clarify these doubts.
Okay. What would be the course duration?
Beg your pardon?
What would be the course duration?
Yes, sir. I'm talking about the including the course duration and the entire fee structure part of it.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely, we would highlight you for this because those are the essential parameters you want to consider before you take
Mhm.
any further step. So definitely, I will ask my people to get in touch with you. Okay,
Sure.
and
Thanks for that.
clarify your doubts. Definitely. So yeah, thank you very much for your time and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.